Hello everyone! Today I'm sharing with you how to design a Taobao shop without it looking cheap. This is a question many sellers start to experience aesthetic anxiety after operating for a while. You might find that the products aren't cheap and the prices aren't low, but the shop itself has an inexplicable cheap feel. So you start to wonder, is the template bad? Is the design unprofessional? Do I have to spend a lot of money to redo it? But I want to first state a very important conclusion. Whether a Taobao shop looks cheap or not isn't as related to how much money you spend as you might think. What truly determines a cheap feel are often some very basic but long overlooked issues. Conclusion. First, a cheap feel is almost never a problem of colors and images. When many people hear cheap, their first reaction is, colors are too bright, images aren't high-end, the style isn't sophisticated enough. So they start frantically changing color schemes, using high-end templates, imitating brand stores. But the result is often, the more they change, the more tired they become, and the results are inconsistent. Because most cheap feelings don't come from the visual surface, but from the information and structure level. A page often looks cheap because it looks cluttered, rushed, and lacks focus. 2. The biggest source of cheapness. Too much information, too rushed, too noisy. This is the most common source of a cheap feel in Taobao stores. Typical manifestations include a screen crammed with content. Every module shouts its selling points, lots of text, images, and key points. The user's first impression upon opening the page isn't clear, but rather, it seems like everything is being sold, but they don't know what to look at first. This state directly conveys a signal. This store is in a hurry, desperate to sell, but lacks confidence. A truly non-cheap page always gives a composed first impression. Third, the second major source of cheapness. Lack of hierarchy, everything sounds the same. The problem with many store pages isn't the amount of content, but rather, every section is the same size. Every line of text is equally important. Every product is promoted in the same way. The result is, users don't know the key points and can only glance at it and leave. You need to understand one thing. A page without hierarchy is perceived as unprofessional by users. Even if you're selling low-priced items, as long as the page hierarchy is clear, it won't look cheap. Cheapness often comes from a lack of prioritization. The third major source of cheapness, overly aggressive, promotional feel. This is one of the biggest pitfalls many sellers fall into. For example, screen full of promotional keywords, frequent use of exclamation marks, various emphasis, bolding, and red highlighting. You might intend to emphasize advantages, but to users, these signals combined only result in, is this store clearing out inventory? Why the rush? Truly non-cheap promotional expressions often involve placing it appropriately, being subtle, not disrupting the overall flow. Promotions are tools to drive decision-making, not the main focus of the page. The fourth major source of cheapness, inconsistent style, like a patchwork. Many stores' cheap feel isn't due to a single poorly done section, but rather the overall impression of being pieced together. Common issues include vastly different styles across modules, disorganized image sources, inconsistent fonts and layout. This gives users a very direct impression. Does this store keep changing things up? Professionalism and quality often come from consistent quality over time, not from a single stunning moment. Sixth, the fifth major source of cheapness, treating selling points as slogans. Many pages look like they're trying too hard, but they just don't feel sophisticated. The reason is, the selling points are listed extensively but without concrete expression. They're all abstract descriptions. For example, high quality, carefully selected, meticulously crafted. These words themselves aren't wrong, but if they're everywhere on the page, users will feel a lot has been said, but it seems like nothing has been said at all. Cheapness often comes from empty wording and vague information. Seventh, what are the things that non-cheap shops usually do right? Let's look at it from the opposite perspective. Truly non-cheap Taobao shops often have these characteristics. Clearly prioritized information. One screen conveys only one message. Specific and restrained expression of selling points. Promotions don't rush the pace. Overall style remains consistent. You'll find they may not necessarily be very sophisticated, but they are definitely clear and consistent. Stability itself is a quality. 8. A very practical judgment method. You can check yourself with a simple question. If I were to enter this store for the first time, ignoring prices and product details, and only looking at the homepage, would I feel that the store is in a hurry? If the answer is yes, then a cheap feeling is most likely already present. A very practical piece of advice for sellers. If you currently feel your store looks cheap, don't rush to scrap it and start over. Prioritize 3 things: reduce content, elevate hierarchy, stabilize style. Even without adding anything, as long as the page becomes quieter and clearer, the cheap feeling will often decrease significantly. In short, whether a Taobao store looks cheap or not is never about how much you add, but about whether you dare to reduce.